Thank you everybody for joining. We're gonna get started in a little bit here, a few minutes. Good evening and welcome to Give Liberty a Hand 2020. My name is Yusuf Ivali and I am the director of the Boston Mayor's Office for Immigrant Advancement. It is my pleasure to be your host tonight as we celebrate immigrants and refugees in Massachusetts and their champions in business, public service, and advocacy. This week has been a tough week. George Floyd's memorial services started this afternoon. Many of us in City Hall paused our work for a full 8 minutes and 46 seconds at its start. I couldn't help but reflect in those 8.5 minutes on the brokenness of our nation at this time. Thousands of our Black brethren, along with allies, are marching in the streets every day, rightly demanding an end to racial discrimination and violence. COVID-19 has claimed 7,152 lives in our Commonwealth as of yesterday, with almost 102,000 confirmed cases. Not only has the virus disproportionately affected immigrants and other people of color, so has the economic devastation from the shutdown and now business closures. If you're like me right now, it's hard to think and figure out how to move forward. But move forward we will, and whatever pathway we choose as Bostonians, Bay Staters, and Americans, I believe must center voices of all peoples, particularly people of color and immigrants, who, as we all know, have been historically marginalized. That's why it was so important for me to be here tonight, because the work of MIRA and its members gives voice to our immigrant communities in the public sphere. We're here to raise funds for this incredible work and to celebrate the extraordinary people in this coalition and the partners and allies who step up to support MIRA's mission time and again. This is MIRA's first virtual gala ever, so you're gonna have to be a little patient if things go a little this way or that way. But we do want you on Zoom. You know, we can't cheer or give standing ovations, but we really want you to encourage you to use the chat box to share your love, note when something really resonates, and engage with fellow participants. We're gonna really try to make this like the real life MIRA galas, which are legendary, as we all know. And if you're on camera, you can also applaud visibly, just like this, or pump your fist, raise your glass of toast, love the heart sign, do the heart sign, be creative, have fun. To get us started, please welcome John Wilshire Carrera, co-managing director of the Harvard Immigration and Refugee Clinic at Greater Boston Legal Services. I'm gonna turn it over to John, and board chair of MIRA Coalition.
Concedes nothing without a demand. It never did, and it never will. Tonight, at this moment of great pain and turmoil in our country, I start by first and foremost paying our respects to George Floyd, who was brutally killed on Memorial Day by 4 police officers in Minneapolis, and to the Black Lives Matter, No Justice, No Peace movement that has taken to the streets to demand justice and brought so many with them. Their struggle to confront with determination and perseverance the systemic racism inflicted on the African American community since the very founding of this country is a struggle that must be borne by all of us. To me, as an immigrant and an advocate for the human rights, for the human rights of immigrant communities, I see the treatment of Black sisters and brothers echoed in the egregious mistreatment inflicted on our immigrant communities by a system built largely on racism and xenophobia, and by an administration which at every step at this time has sought to fuel that racism and xenophobia and to exploit it for personal gain. We see this reflected in policies which separate mothers from their children, return those seeking protection to life-threatening conditions, and instilling a fear of terror within our communities that family members can be taken away at any moment. This is all too real. All this while immigrants and other people of color make up the majority of essential workers who have continued to make life possible for the larger community throughout the pandemic, and who have therefore borne the brunt of the brutal mortality statistics. But there's another side to this moment. The resilience and determination we see within the Black Lives Matter movement is also echoed within our communities. MIRA and the 130 organizations which make up the coalition, as well as other individuals and immigrant rights organizations throughout the Commonwealth and throughout the country, fight each day and every day against each new move to strip our communities of our rights. And like Sisyphus, slowly push the boulder up the hill. This, as well, is a struggle which must be borne by all of us. I conclude by handing the floor to Eva Malona, MIRA's CEO, and someone I deeply respect for her tenacity, her dedication, and her leadership. And on behalf of the board of directors, I conclude by welcoming each and every one to our gala, and thank you for your tireless organizing, work, and support for our struggles for justice. I particularly want to congratulate our honorees. Thank you. No justice, no peace.
Good evening, everyone. And thank you so much, John, for those moving and important remarks. Thank you so much for joining us for MIRA's first ever virtual Give Liberty a Hand. I'd like to offer my deepest thanks to our sponsors for their generous support, to our amazing event committee for making this event possible, the amazing MIRA staff, and in particular, the three outstanding co-chairs, Ron Kermish of Bain and Company, playwright and producer Amy Merrill, and Leslie Gitani of Chin and Curtis. Also, thank you so much, Yusuf Valvi, for emceeing our event and those powerful words. And also, I want to thank the public officials who are joining us tonight, and want to give a shout out to Representative-elect Dan Sena, the first Brazilian immigrant elected to the Massachusetts State Legislature and the first in the nation. Congratulations, Representative Sena.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. It means the world to us that all of you are here tonight, even in this very painful time. I too want to acknowledge the profound grief and anger in our communities over the murder of George Floyd and many others, and the moral imperative it presents to all of us to end the structures that perpetuate racial injustice and oppression. We must also acknowledge the disproportionate toll that the COVID-19 pandemic had on the Black and Brown communities, including immigrant communities, who risk their lives daily as essential workers, yet often have no social safety net to protect them when they lose jobs and income. Many of us has also lost relatives and friends in the pandemic. At times like this, it's especially hard to forego being physically present with each other, extending a hand or an embrace, encouraging each other as we have in Gala's past. These are uncertain and challenging times. And tonight, I want to encourage us to move forward together and not get lost in despair. Because despite of the hardship of recent weeks and months, our communities have responded with valor, resilience, and generosity. Tonight, I want to recognize and celebrate that response and all that the MIRA family is doing to create a better and more just world. Take a moment to look around, to really see each other tonight. The MIRA family includes business executives, entrepreneurs and philanthropists, lawyers and healthcare providers, faith leaders, nonprofit leaders, and advocates, all working in communities across Massachusetts to feed people, keep them housed, connect them with healthcare and other programs, grassroots activists who are mobilizing for immigrants for their rights, racial justice, and equity. This is the heart of MIRA, people from all backgrounds brought together across cultures and even across political parties by our shared commitment to our common future. We know it's not us versus them. We refuse to play zero-sum games. We believe that only together can we truly thrive, build prosperity, and build a strong democracy. That is why I'm so proud of the work that we have done with the Massachusetts Business Immigration Coalition, now with 70 members, who have been a strong voice on immigration, including Safe Communities and Work and Family Mobility Act. So I want to give a shout out to its leader and chair, Thomas O'Brien. Thank you, Tom, for your vision and your leadership. When legislators see a top real estate developer and the head of a construction firm standing shoulder to shoulder with a Haitian pastor and a civil rights advocate, they understand that the well-being of immigrants and refugees, it's everybody's business. This is how we make an impact together. Advocates, immigrant leaders, business leaders, philanthropists, and ordinary citizens working together to advance the goals of immigrant communities and create systemic change in our democracy. Together is how we are assisting immigrants workers unjustly denied federal stimulus payment, even when we advocate to right that wrong. Together is how we have made big inroads in language access since the pandemic started, and we keep calling for more. Together is how we are going to get our Commonwealth back on its feet, not as it was, but as it should be. Because we can't have families who lack access to rent, assistance, or food. We cannot have a housing market that forces working families to put 10 or 12 people in a 2-bedroom apartment. And we can't have immigrant communities so paralyzed by fear that they avoid healthcare, even in a pandemic. Our Commonwealth should be better than that. So we have a lot of work to do, my friends, and we can only do it together. We have the privilege of honoring 4 exceptional leaders tonight, starting with our keynote speaker, Esther Duflo. She's doing groundbreaking work to find the best ways to lift people out of poverty. She is an immigrant superstar, and we are thrilled to have her with us. Representative Mike Moran has been a champion for our communities on Beacon Hill, from getting the Domestic Workers Bill of Rights passed in 2014 to securing $3.9 million for census outreach this year, and so much more. Anbu Sawyer, my dear friend who directs the Southeast Asian Coalition of Central Massachusetts. She's a social entrepreneur, a visionary leader, and a beloved mentor to young people. And least but not last, fabulous Rosalyn Acosta, our Secretary of Labor and Workforce Development for the Commonwealth. The Secretary has used her own family's immigration experience to inspire and inform years of advocacy for diversity, Latinx leadership, and opportunities for our workforce, as well as an accomplished career in banking and finance. Congratulations. I am so honored to have you with us tonight. To each and every one of you, thank you so much for your presence, especially tonight. Thank you for being here. Thank you for supporting MIRA. Thank you for everything that you do for immigrants and refugees. From my heart to yours, thank you. And now please welcome my friend Eric Lender, co-founder of the Broad Institute.
Eva, thank you so much for those words and for all of your leadership and for all that MIRA is doing. This is a week, more than a week now, of outrage over the murder of George Floyd. It is such a hard week, and yet in it, there is the hope right now that people are not giving up until there is real change. No justice, no peace has to be sustained. And it is the one encouragement in a terrible, terrible time to see that people, all of us, are not letting go of this until there is real change. To say this is not about bad apples or exceptions, this is about structure. It is structural racism, it is structural oppression. And that is a very important theme that I want to use to introduce our keynote speaker. There are many people who like to wave away the problems of the world by explaining that, well, they happen because of economics. You can't fix them. You try and it doesn't succeed. Our keynote speaker has said many things, but one of the things she said that I love most is there are no iron laws of economics keeping us from building a more humane world. When we see things that are deeply broken, we must understand them and we must fix them. And if we try something and it doesn't work, that is an experiment, and we must try something more and we must learn something more from it. It's bringing the thinking of science to how we fix the world. And so perhaps it is no surprise that she was one of the recipients of last year's Nobel Memorial Prize in Economic Sciences. Most economics is not about sciences. It's about theory, hypotheses about the world, but Esther Duflo has gone way beyond that. She has challenged all of us to understand what actually works and what doesn't work by bringing the idea of experiment and hard testing to the hardest problems. It's so easy to say, oh, we must get children to go to schools, but does it work? Are the schools good enough? Are there other problems? In my own field of medicine, it has been easy over centuries to make simple statements about what must be done to cure disease. And yet the real progress has come from the tenacity of sticking with it and testing things. And Esther, together with Abhijit Banerjee, who happens to be her husband, and Michael Kramer, received the Nobel Prize because they have caused a revolution in economics of a sort that I think will have revolutionary impact on the whole world. They have said, problems are not unsolvable. Problems are only unsolvable if you don't understand them and if you don't try and you don't fix. I am so honored to have Esther as a colleague at MIT, where she leads the Poverty Action Lab. She's the Abdul Latif Jameel Professor of Economics, in fact, the Professor of Poverty Alleviation and Development Economics at MIT, and runs the Poverty Action Lab there. And it has, through more than 200 experiments, pointed the way to how we go about trying to fix injustices due to structural oppression in the world. So she is an amazing example of the power of immigrants to this nation. I am firmly believe that the perspectives that have allowed her to change these paradigms come because she brings perspectives from elsewhere. And this has always been the recipe for making this country a great country. And so with enormous admiration, I wish to introduce to all of you our keynote speaker tonight, Esther Duflo, truly a revolutionary and also truly a humane person. Esther.
Thank you very much. Thank you, MIRA, for this wonderful honor, which I'm going to display. I suppose someone would have given it to me, so it came in a mail, so I'm very happy to give it to myself. Thank you, Eric, for this wonderful introduction. I worry it's going to be downhill from there. I must say things have radically changed since we met. I met Eva for the first time in Eric's house, and we had a wonderful dinner discussing the problems of the world. It is not that there weren't any problems then, and I'm going to go back to that. But of course, two major things happened since then. First, there was the COVID crisis, which, as Eva pointed out, has exacted an absolutely disproportionate toll on Latinx communities, other migrant communities, and African-American communities. I've been doing a project with almost 70 doctors at MGH to try and understand just a small part of it, which is the lack of trust that exists between both communities and the health system, and in particular, the ingrained worry, fear that exists among African Americans that they will not be treated well, and among Latinx that they might be deported. There were many aspects of this project that were very striking. Some of them were hopeful. For example, the fact that if you get doctors to convey messages about the symptoms of COVID, the ways of transmission, and how to prevent transmission, how to protect yourselves and your loved one. We did that as part of an experiment. And when we did this experiment, we found that this is quite effective, that those doctors are very effective. But one of the very sad facts that came out of it is that there is a profound fear among Latinx that their information could be given. The second really disturbing fact is that there is nothing we could say to assure them that this wouldn't happen, simply because there is no guarantee that hospitals have that the information cannot be shared in the subpoena. That might be true in isolated cases, but in general, if you want to address the Latinx community nationwide, you can never guarantee that this information is not going to be used against them. So that's the first thing that happened. In Boston in particular, the Chelsea community has been hit so hard by this disease that this is something that really left me reeling. And then of course, there were the 3 murders of Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, and George Floyd that combined has finally given rise to the outrage that Eric was discussing, but that of course come on the heel of decades of such events. And I'm sure whether one needs to be distressed now or one needs to be hopeful now, because in some sense, very unfortunately, none of these murders are news, but the reaction to it, both the scale of the protest and also the reaction of the broader public to it is news. So there might be some figment of hope in that, in terms of action for the future. It's really all about action. As Eric was saying, I don't believe that there is fatalism of either economics or politics, that situations are the way they are because of some deep system that is not changeable. The systems are hard to change, but they can be changed. Unfortunately, neither the outsized toll that the COVID has had on the African American Latinx community, nor the 3 recent murders are isolated incidents. Unfortunately, they are coming as the emerged part of the iceberg of what some people call structural racism, and is generally both a different economic treatment of both African Americans and migrants, and of deep mistrust that exists in some quarters among not everybody, but in some quarters of the native population towards both of these communities. There again, one could say, well, you know, it's not economic fatalism, but it's political fatalism. Racism is ingrained, it's coming from the history of this country. But I also don't believe that. I think this is in some sense, for many people, the only way that they have to make sense of what is happening to them. America likes to think of itself as the country of opportunities. This is a country where migrants like me can come and work in university and get Nobel Prizes. This is the countries where people can move from bad jobs to good jobs, and and there is lots of intergenerational mobility. So even the poor, even if they stay poor, their children will stay rich. Unfortunately, this story that we are telling ourselves as a nation isn't quite true anymore. In fact, it is now much less true in the US than it is in Europe. So if you take a child who is born of poor parents in the bottom 20% of the population in terms of income distribution, their probability to make it out of the bottom 20 and their probability to make it into the top 20 is lower. Both of those probabilities are lower than the same number in Europe. This used to be the opposite. But today, social mobility is actually lower in the US. However, people's beliefs of social mobility is very high. So people still live in the dream that their kids can succeed. And in some sense it's good, and in some sense it's bad, because although they have this sense in general, they are not fools and they can see that things are not going well for them. And when I say that things are not going well for them, despite this illusion that is repeated to them all the time, then they very naturally are looking for an explanation. And this is where political entrepreneurs, who shall remain unnamed because even pronouncing their names would make me sad, can use this need for an enemy to promote a discourse that is both anti-African American and anti-migrants. And the subtlety of the discourse are somewhat different when the two communities are concerned, but it really comes from the same place. It's coming from the idea that there is only one pie and it's a big one, but there is someone else who is eating it away from you. And unfortunately, this is a discourse that seems very intuitive. You know, if people think of the economy as a big pie, if there are more people to eat from that pie, there will be less for me. Or more specifically, if you're thinking about people looking for jobs, if there are more people who need a job, then of course the wages will be lower, or I will be more likely to be unemployed. Now, it turns out that it's not the way economy works. For example, if you look at the migrants, when they come to a city, they work very hard. They take the jobs that no one wants to take. They consume things that other poor people produce. So that on balance, across now dozens and dozens of studies, there is simply no evidence that migrants take away jobs or lead to lower salary for the native population. In fact, if anything, it goes the other way. And in fact, efforts that have been made before this administration to kick out migrants so that the native population can have jobs have totally backfired. For example, in the 1960s, when they sent back the braceros home by removing their visas, the hope was that it would create jobs for low-skilled native in California. But what happened instead is that agriculture was mechanized so that no one had any sort of a job. So there was no positive effect of that. So that is what we are learning from years, decades of experience with migrants, but that's not what people have in the back of their mind. And of course, as I was saying, this is in part because this narrative are both intuitive and very convenient for some set of people. So you might take away from that this is all quite depressing and there is really nothing to do. And but as Eric said, that's not my outlook on life. And I've been reflecting on this outlook in the last few weeks. The last few weeks have been difficult for everyone. I'm amazingly privileged, so they have not really been difficult for me. But in some sense, they have been so easy for me that I've been feeling extremely guilty as to how lucky I am. And I've been reflecting at, have I just been in some sense given nice awards and given some rewards to say nice things about the disadvantaged people without ever really making any sort of a dent? And am I in some sense profiting from people's unhappiness in some other way? And that's not a good place to go. And I had the occasion to reflect on this because I was asked to give some small remarks to the graduating students from MIT. And I quoted to them from a kid's book that my children like, which is called Dogman. If you have kids, you probably have read Dogman. And in this book, there is a mechanical fish who decides to become the nanny of 20 tadpoles who have become orphaned for a series of unfortunate events. And two characters are discussing that, and little Petey, a little cat, says to his dad, "See, I told you he was a good guy, he's changing the world." And his dad cat says, "Well, I don't know if he's changing the world. This is just 22 tadpoles." And little Petey says, "Well, it is changing their world." And I find a lot of comfort in this story. A more dignified way to say the same thing is Martin Luther King quote that the arc of moral justice is long, but it bends towards justice. If you're looking at the last 30 years, even including the COVID times, the lives of the poor has greatly improved. Infant mortality has been divided by 2. Poverty rates had been divided by 2, although I'm sure they're going to climb up again. Maternal mortality has been divided by 2. Almost every child is in school. And this is the result not of one big stroke. This is the result of a series of good policy decisions, which themselves are the result of a lot of experiments, some of them successful, some of them failing. So the war on poverty, and I will extend this to the war against racism, the war against bigotry, the fight for social justice, is very much like the war on cancer. It's not one big, beautiful battle where you have solved the problem. It's a series of steps, some in the right direction, some in the wrong direction, which progressively leads to improvements. And we are certainly not in the forward step, although I am sure that something will emerge from this. Your work, one migrant at a time, one community at a time, is very much like tadpoles. And at the same time, being a coalition, you have the possibility, like we try to do also in my lab, to build from those tadpoles and say, what have we understood? How can we move forward from what we've learned today? So we have to continue, one step at a time. Keep the hope, keep the rigor, but keep the emotions as well, and not forget why we are doing what we are doing. Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Duflo, just for your insights, your work, and then just your spirit. I think I echo everyone on this call that you just seem to have a very beautiful spirit, and appreciate you recognizing the hope in this moment. I think we're all going to tell that story. We're going to hear that story from you and tell it to others in this moment. Now we have a real treat. We have two incredible musicians, Maria Esther and Maria Lisa Alvarez, founders and directors of the Boston String Academy, coming to us from their living room. Maria Esther and Maria Lisa have developed an outstanding children's string orchestra curriculum inspired by El Sistema, the national system of youth and children orchestras of their native Venezuela. They're also graduates of the Boston Conservatory and have worked with a long list of internationally acclaimed artists. You may have seen them on stage with dozens of talented young musicians, perhaps your own children. Tonight, they're going to perform a violin duo. Take it away, Maria Esther and Maria Lisa.
Hello, good evening. Thank you for having us here. It's such an honor for us. I am Maria Lisa and I am Maria Esther Alvarez, and we're going to perform two pieces for you. The Venezuelan is called, the first one is called Tico Tico by Brazilian composer Zequinha Dobré. Enjoy. We have a second piece for you.
Oh.
Por una cabeza, so it's the famous tango. And it's by the Argentinian composer Carlos Gardel.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you. Thank you so much, Maria Esther and Maria Lisa. Let's give them a round of applause, everybody. That was so, so pretty and so soothing for the soul, particularly at this moment and time. Thank you so, so much for just the incredible talent that you both are. I hope you get a chance to look at all of the chat messages because they're just off the charts here. And thank you once again. Now, please welcome Leslie Ditrani of Chin and Curtis, co-chair of the event committee.
Great. Thank you very much. Can everyone hear me? I'm going to go with yes.
Yes, we can hear you.
Excellent. So I'm co-managing partner of Chin & Curtis, a Boston business immigration law firm. And I've been practicing immigration law for over 25 years now. And looking back on it now, I think, Eva, we've been friends for almost as long. Friends with Eva and the MIRA community. So thank you for allowing me to be part of this event tonight. During these extremely challenging times, which when I was first thinking about this event was merely the anti-immigrant sentiments coming from Washington. And here, only months later, the whole world has changed. And I imagine everyone is doing something similar to what I'm doing, kind of stopping and reflecting and wondering what is going on. And at times I can stop and be grateful for the things that we do have. And when I think of my things, it's MIRA and Eva and the work that they do. It's the citizenship clinics, the education and the outreach, the policy and the legislative advocacy. It's the work that needs to be done for our communities. So thank you. So it's my pleasure to recognize our major sponsors who not only made substantial contributions to the success of this gala, but also in many cases brought additional support from their families, friends, and partners. In particular, I want to recognize my wonderful event committee co-chairs, Amy Merrill and Ron Permish, who have more than lived up to the label of visionary sponsors. A big thanks also to Eastern Bank, a loyal sponsor of this gala for many years and a strong supporter of the immigrant communities, Arabella Insurance, SEIU 1199, and Don Sullivan, a new but very generous supporter of MIRA brought to us by Ron. Welcome, Don. And our deep appreciation to our patron level sponsors too. Mary Wasmuth, the Alchemy Foundation, Blue Hub Capital, the Boston Foundation, Fragaman, Scott and Janice Fitzgerald. Hi, Scott. Hi, Janice. Oliver Hart, Iaxa Beauchamp, and the Melendez and Beauchamp Family Fund, Bob and Patricia Rivers, and Western Union. With an extra big thanks to Mario's fantastic Instagram video. We're fortunate to have more than 50 sponsors for this gala, and I'm not going to read everyone. You can find the full list on the MIRA website, and we're also going to show it at the closing. But in these difficult times, we realize there are so many, many worthy causes demanding your attention. So we are enormously grateful for your support. So now I want to invite those of you who haven't contributed yet, or if you have given but want to give more, to take a moment to give online. Eva says you can do it now or later, but I say skip the later. Let's just do it now. The site is right there on the bottom of the screen. It's so if you have a moment, if you can spend a little money, a lot of money to support MIRA, it is really greatly appreciated. So I want everyone to raise a glass if they have one. And thank you to MIRA for all the work you do. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Leslie. I don't have a glass, but I'm raising my hand and doing one of these. And I do also want to just say, please give. Being in government for 11 months now, I can't tell you how important the civic sector and having strong immigrant organization partners externally is to really moving the field. So I hope everyone does give. Now to begin the second part of our program, where we'll recognize 3 more honorees, please welcome the playwright Amy Merrill, also co-chair of the event committee.
Good evening. Can you hear me? You
We
can hear me?
you.
Great. My name is, thank you, Yusufi. My name is Amy Merrill, and I'm a longtime supporter of MIRA Coalition. As a playwright and producer, I believe that the arts can and must have a role to play in social justice work. We're storytellers, problem solvers, and above all, connectors. We ask questions and we offer comfort. And like others, I'll add that personally, I am moved by and mourn the death of George Floyd and others just in the past few months and before, but I am heartened by the outpouring of protests which show no sign of stopping, and that heartens me. Earlier in my professional career, I was a nurse, and I worked in Boston area hospitals and health centers for almost 20 years. So I have a particular feeling for the brave healthcare workers who are fighting COVID and taking care of everyone. But tonight is MIRA's night, and it's my great pleasure to introduce our second honoree, a woman with an extraordinary personal story and an impressive professional record. Anbu Sawyer has led the Southeast Asian Coalition of Central Massachusetts since 2012. She has served on Governor Baker's Advisory Council for Refugees and Immigrants and on Attorney General Maura Healey's Advisory Council for New Americans. An was 18 when in 1975, she and her family escaped Vietnam as part of the historic Saigon airlift. As an advocate, An helps immigrants and refugees build new lives in America while preserving their cultural heritage. In the pandemic, SCAC has mobilized like never before, providing 650 surgical masks to health and service workers while feeding families and providing multilingual support for Asian immigrants. An is also an exceptional mentor to young people. 2 years ago, she challenged youth at SCAC to apply to top colleges by doing it herself at age 63. Since then, 51 of those youth have been accepted to schools including Yale, Princeton, Cornell, Harvard, Brown, and Columbia. And she just graduated from MIT's Sloan School of Management in its executive MBA class of 2020. Congratulations, An. For visionary leadership, kindness, and grace, we are thrilled to honor Anbu Sawyer. Please give her a warm welcome.
Thank you so much. I cannot thank you enough. I would like to thank all of you who have supported and donated to MIRA, and I hope you will, because every penny or every $1 million that you donate is an incredible investment to the life of many immigrants and refugees, and will yield the greatest ROI, return of investment. And I would like to thank Eva and everyone at MIRA, everyone in this panel, and everyone who's watching for being here with us. And I still say, in spite of everything that's happening in the country right now, the US is, to me, as a refugee from Vietnam, it is still heaven on earth. And representing my board, our board of directors at the Southeast Asian Coalition and everyone there, we make a pledge that we will be the best contributing citizens that we can be for this country. And we're so proud of being Americans. Thank you so much, and God bless you all.
Thank you, An. So well deserved for all of the great work that you do. And thank you for, again, representing that incredible hope in America. I hope you're also checking out the chat and you see all the congratulations you've received and then the waves that you got. Now to introduce our third honoree, please welcome Amanda Brown of Chin and Curtis, a member of MIRA's Board of Directors. Hi, Amanda.
Before introducing our next honoree, I'd like to briefly add my personal appreciation and thanks to MIRA for the work they do day in and day out. As a member of the Board of Directors, I've witnessed the behind-the-scenes efforts and the enormous dedication the organization has made to help immigrant communities and to continue the fight despite all of the Herculean challenges we face today. Their determination and commitment to this cause are the reasons I am proud to be an ongoing supporter of MIRA. And now it is my pleasure to introduce our third honoree, Representative Michael J. Moran. Representative Moran was elected to the House from the 18th Suffolk District in 2005 and now serves as Second Assistant Majority Leader. As a child of an immigrant family, he has been a leader on many immigrant priorities. He was lead sponsor of the 2014 Domestic Workers Bill of Rights, a groundbreaking law that protects vulnerable domestic workers, mostly immigrants, from abuse, sexual harassment, and discrimination. As the chair of the Redistricting Committee, he led the creation of the strongest majority-minority congressional district in Massachusetts history, Congressional District 7, and doubled the amount of majority-minority districts in the State House of Representatives to 20. He secured $2.5 million in state funding for 2020 census outreach by community organizations that has been instrumental in ensuring a complete count, especially of immigrants. And he secured $200,000 for MIRA's Welcoming Spaces Project, which is building capacity for immigrant advocacy and integration across the state. We received many notes praising Representative Moran for his advocacy and leadership, calling him, quote, a champion of dignity and equal rights, the quarterback for our issues, and an incredibly strong leader. We're grateful for all he's done and thrilled to honor him tonight. Please welcome Representative Mike Moran.
Thank you very much, Amanda, for those very kind words. As you can see, I've lost some hair since the COVID-19 epidemic. I've had to get a nice tight trim, but so I look a little different than in the invitation. So I'm just happy to be here tonight, and I'm thrilled to share this honor with so many other worthy honorees, and I want to congratulate them on their award tonight. I also would be remiss if I didn't thank MIRA and Eva for all the work that she does in and around the immigrant community. As a son of immigrants whose parents came here in 1961, I can assure you I know how important immigrants are to the character and the fabric of this country, of this state, and the city which I live. More than ever now, though, MIRA and organizations like this are essential. We are the last line of defense in some respect when it comes to giving immigrants a voice. And in this crazy time, when you see what's happening with people like George Floyd and our friends in the Black and brown community, it's organizations like this that's going to stand up and be a voice for people who don't have one. That's why I love working with MIRA. My first interaction with them was in 2005 and 2006, when we were working hard to try and get in-state tuition for immigrants in public higher ed universities. We didn't win that fight, but we did bring the vote to the floor. I was proud to serve with 65 of my other colleagues who made that vote. And one of the proudest votes I've made, because it was a principled vote, and it was really, in my opinion, although we didn't win it, really set a line of where you stood and where you stand on these issues. The immigrant community is so oftentimes underappreciated in so many cases and underserved. But working with people and the groups like MIRA, we are moving the ball forward on a lot of those issues. For those of you that know me, I'm not really good at accepting these types of awards because really it's not done by one person. It's always a team. It's organizations like MIRA It's colleagues that I serve with. It's people that I represent that do care about immigrants and do care about what their station is in our society. So as you can hear, I'm in this chamber right now. We're at work right now. We're passing a bill on elections and opening up elections for September, November, so more people can participate. So there's a roll call right now, so I'm being pulled away. But I just want to end by saying thank you all very much for attending. Thank you all for supporting MIRA. Thank you all for recognizing me tonight. And peace and stay well and safe. Thank you.
Give Rep. Moran a round of applause here. Thank you so much, Rep. Moran, for all your advocacy. And, you know, Rep. Moran had to shave his head, but this is where the fact that I have a kufi came in clutch during COVID, because it covers up my hair and you don't want to see what's underneath there. With that, I'd like to introduce our final honoree. Please welcome Ron Kermish of Bain & Company, the third event committee co-chair.
Hi, everybody. I'm Ron Kermish. I'm a partner of Bain & Company, and I'm the son of 2 immigrants to the U.S. I feel very blessed to have grown up here and believe strongly in the value that immigrants bring to our community and to our economy. It's my pleasure to introduce our final honoree, Rosalyn Acosta, who's the Secretary of Labor and Workforce Development for the Commonwealth, a very challenging and important job to have right now. She and her team work to ensure that workers and employers have the tools, training, and safety resources needed to succeed in our economy. She also co-chairs the Workforce Skills Cabinet. Born in Cuba, she came to the US when she was 3 and watched her parents, both college professors in Havana, face enormous obstacles to build new lives here. Their strength and perseverance shine through in the formidable professional and advocate that she herself has become. She came to public service after a successful 30-year career in banking and finance, but she also has a long track record as a civic leader and public speaker. She loves to motivate youth and build Latino leadership, and she serves as a cultural ambassador for diversity and inclusion. We're not the first to recognize her. She's been named one of Boston's most influential women by the Women of Harvard Club, and she received the Lifetime Achievement Award from the Association of Latino Professionals for America. Secretary Acosta is a role model and inspiration and a highly effective leader in a position to make an enormous impact. We're thrilled to honor her tonight, so please give her a warm welcome.
Good evening, everyone. It's wonderful to be here with you. It's wonderful to be here with you tonight. I want to thank Eva and all of your wonderful staff at MIRA Coalition. You are doing so many important things. You have been and you continue to. I also want to thank all of you that are listening today, and those of you that gave me the honor of being recognized tonight. I want to recognize my fellow honorees, Dr. Duflo, Representative Moran, which is busy doing a roll call right now, which is great. State employees never stop working. And Anbu Sawyer, thank you so much for doing all that you do every single day. As you just heard, yes, I am an immigrant. I immigrated to this country from Cuba when I was 3.5 years old. And, you know, I think there's a lot that I've taken from that experience. And frankly, that experience of an immigrant informs my daily decision-making, and everything I do and see, I see through those eyes. Honestly, to be in this position right now at this moment in time where we're all making history, all of us are thinking about what are we contributing, even before this horrific events of the George Floyd heinous murder. We were in a historic moment with this pandemic where we were really forced to do things that were very unnatural to us. And certainly for me as a Latina, not being able to hug, not being able to be around my family, and not being able to see my 90-year-old mother that's in assisted living and haven't seen her in almost 3 months now. These are very difficult things. I feel blessed and honored to be part of the governor's cabinet in a time like this. I think I probably would have been going a little nutty if I wasn't part of the solution, and having the honor to really be able to bring some solutions to the Commonwealth. As you all know, unemployment has just skyrocketed this past month. We went from one of the best economies Massachusetts has ever seen at 2.8% to an unemployment rate of 15.1%. That's an enormous, enormous escalation. And unfortunately, what we see, as we see in every economic recession, and Dr. Duflo spoke about it earlier in her comments, is a disproportionate effect on our Black and Latino communities, and specifically our immigrant communities that are left without any of the federal safety nets or state safety nets that we're able to offer so many others. And we are, in a place where, our Latino and Black brethren are considered, many of those jobs that have gone away have been in the essential worker space. And some of these jobs will not come back. So there are jobs that will absolutely not come back. So how are we going to move from this super high unemployment to reemployment? And those are the things that our office now is, obviously our office is looking at, and the fact that we really do need to bring a lot of things virtually. So we have to strengthen our ESOL and AB offerings. We know that. We know that we also have to make sure that we equalize access to training. And one of the biggest obstacles that we always saw in our mass hire career centers was transportation. People couldn't come to us for training. And frankly, this pandemic has forced us to have more virtual access, virtual workshops. So now more people can access these trainings. And we have to continue working with community-based organizations like MIRA to make sure that whatever policies we decide on, whatever policies that we think are effective, we're working with our community to make sure that we're making the right decisions and they actually are touching the community that we mean to touch. So I'm extremely honored to be here today. We have a lot of work ahead of us. This is a very solemn time for our country, and I know that I have been very affected by everything that has happened over these past couple of weeks, but I am also an eternal optimist. I do believe that our country is in a moment of reckoning, and I do believe that I'm hoping anyway that something is shifting, and that we're all paying attention, and that November is coming, and November is almost here. And we have to do absolutely everything we possibly can to make sure that we're making a difference this year. And that's the only way to make change happen. It's with stamina and resolve, and that great immigrant stock credo of failure is not an option, and we have to move forward. And there's no failure here. We cannot fail in our mission. So thank you again for honoring me tonight. This has been truly wonderful. I've spoken in front of a MIRA audiences before, and I'm always so touched by the work that's going on here. So thank you, Eva, for all you're doing and for carrying this mission for so many years.
Thank you so much, Secretary Acosta. Let's give Secretary Acosta a round of applause, and thank you for all the hard work that you're doing at this time. And this challenge is a state level challenge. It's also a city level challenge. And just know that you have partners at the city as we all work together with that immigrant spirit to really help our country, help our state, help our city. So now it's my real pleasure to welcome Eva Milana to close out the program. As you know, Eva is the president and CEO. We heard from her at the beginning, but we're going to hear from her one more time. And I just want to echo what everyone else has said. She's a great partner to the work, a light in the immigration field. And Eva, I'll let you close it out.
Sure. Thank you, Sufi, for being a wonderful MC and your powerful words. I am so touched and moved. Congratulations to the honorees. Thank you to each and every one of you. who participated tonight. Very different than our galas, but I just wanted to send my love, my virtual hugs to all of you. I'm a hugger too. I hope to see you all soon. And thank you so much for your presence, for your contribution, and all your love and support. Thank you.